Hey guys, welcome back to Road Hard Restorations. We have a barn find 1968 Chevy Camaro SS 396 one owner car that's been sitting for 26 years, and the motor, well, it appears to be locked up. Before we kind of dig into the motor, get this thing running, I'll have you know this is not my car, unfortunately. This thing is a beauty. All original. Let's play. When was the last time this thing was registered? 1998. Original California car. No sign of rust anywhere that I've seen. And there it is. Big block 396. I put a wrench on the crank, couldn't get it to spin over, couldn't get it to budge. I don't want to snap the bolt off the front of the crank snout. That would be a bad day. So we'll dig into it a little bit more, see, get the plugs pulled and see what we got. As a first order of business here, we got to fix this stud busted off. So we put the water neck back on there. It looks like it's got the old Quadrajet, power brakes, drum, AC car, so that makes it really convenient to work on. But yeah, man, you don't see cars like this very often. Yeah, not anymore. Kind of put together a little bit of a list of stuff that we're going to need to do to this car to get it going. Customer brought over a new fuel tank, so we can put a new fuel tank and sender in it. From the fuel tank all the way to the front of the engine, or yeah, from the fuel tank all the way to the engine, we got to make sure we change out all the rubber hoses. I mean, this thing's been sitting for 26 years. I imagine all the fuel lines are probably rotted out by now. Oh geez, I got a whole long list here. We're going to pull the spark plugs out, see if we can get this motor to budge. It's probably just stuck from sitting so long. But it was indoors in a garage parked this whole time, so I'm not too worried about it. I think it's just from sitting for a while. And I think these are high compression motors. I'm not 100% sure, but I imagine so. So I'll pull the plug, see if we get the motor to turn over. We'll go through the carburetor, make sure that it's, once I get fuel to it, make sure it's not leaking all over the place. Check all the other fluids. Don't know if the brakes work yet. When we were backing it off the trailer, one of the guys was holding the brake, keep it from rolling. So I think the brakes work okay, but we'll check the hoses anyway and make sure that everything's in good working order. Check the power steering fluid and all that good stuff. So yeah, so we got a lot of work to do ahead of us here, so we can get this thing fired up. So first thing, like I said, I'm going to do is see if I can extract that bolt. If I am not successful extracting that bolt, I'm going to pull the intake manifold off, take the intake manifold down to the machine shop and let them tackle that, and then I'll come back and put it back on with some new gaskets, and we'll be done. Shouldn't be a problem. If there's some major issue where they can't get it out or have a problem, which I doubt that they would have any difficulty with all their equipment, then may talk to the owner. He was thinking about maybe putting an aluminum aftermarket intake on there. So, but this car is so virgin, I'd rather like to see the stock manifold go back on there. So anywho's, let's get busy. When you're extracting a bolt, try to get it as clean as possible. Sometimes you can get the little chunks and debris of little shavings and stuff out of there just by blowing through it. You can see kind of a little nub there. I tried a couple of different vice grips to get it on there, see if I can get a grip on it and get it to move or wiggle. No luck there. So I'm going to go ahead and see what I can see where the bolt starts or ends and the actual manifold begins. I was told that's actually a tap. That's a broken tap in there. It's not a broken bolt. I guess the threads were stripped and the tap broke in there, but I don't know. Did they try to weld this or something? I don't know what the heck's going on here. That looks really bizarre. Let's see what we can do here. All right, I bet you guys can tell what's coming up next. Patient is prepped for surgery. Bzz. All right, I gotta put this down. All right, we got a nut on there. We'll see if we can unscrew it. All right, let's see what we got here. Now it's turning very slowly. I'm moving it slowly on purpose. I don't know if it's actually twisting the nut and the weld off of the part, if I'm just going to break it off, or if the thing's actually coming out. I don't know. I can feel it. I can hear it. Oh, let's get you in a little closer here. Come here. Let's see how successful we are here. I don't want to touch it. It's probably too hot. Alrighty, let's see here. Look at that. That is the little offender. So that's how that's done. Okay, now I can put this stuff away. All right, so now we have a hole that maybe we can work with. That's a pretty small hole compared to what the hole size is supposed to be. What the heck? Alrighty, so let's see. Are these the right size bolts here? Okay, that's the size of the bolt that it's supposed to be. Let me get the old brush and blower again. Oh, that was dumb. There's water in there, in case you didn't notice. All right. Well, that was fun. Yeah, there's still antifreeze in this hole, believe it or not. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a thread chaser and see if I can make sure that that's cleaned up, ready, good to go. Make a thread chaser for these as well. Make sure that these are ready to go. And then we'll focus on the next one. What I got here are some thread chasers, internal and external, or male and female, or nut and bolt, whatever. They're different than a tap. You can see the serrations here. So basically they're made to kind of straighten and restore the threads without cutting, but it basically kind of forces the threads to correct themselves if they're kind of wonky. Whereas if you use a tap or die, instead of straightening the thread, it'll actually cut a new thread right across the damaged thread. And then it makes it way easier to cross-thread it going forward. However, if you're able to actually correct the threads, repair the threads, as opposed to just cutting a new path, you get much better results. All right, so these feel really good. The bolts, I think, are just fine. I'm going to run them down into here. You saw me blow air in there already, so I know that there's no gunk just piling up in there. So I'm going to put that in here. And just like a tap, you just go in a little bit, back it off. Go in a turn, back it off a half a turn. Go in a turn or so, back it off a little bit. And this will help clean up the threads, so that way your bolt will be able to thread in correctly. Now these are blind holes, so they don't go into the water jacket, which is nice. Otherwise, some manifolds might actually go through into the water jacket, so you got to watch out for that. And if so, you need thread sealant on the threads for your thermostat housing. All right, that seemed to go in okay. Blow that out again. And then I come through here and just kind of clean this up a little bit. And run it down one more time. Should be able to go in by hand It's actually getting pretty snug. Perfect. All right, that one is restored, ready to go. Now we got that bugger to deal with here. That will be interesting. There was a tap that was stuck in there, but why would you have a tap that was too small for the hole when you need a bolt this size? We had a tap that size. So it looks like we may need to drill that out somehow, getting it straight and in the right position, and then re-tap it and or put a Healy coil in there. Honestly, guys, this might be a job for the machine shop, because, man, this is always a pain. There's not much meat around here that goes into the water jacket. I'd hate to booger that up beyond repair. And that tap was going in there crooked too. What did they do? Did they put JB Weld in here and fill it in? Oh, it looks like there's some other metal in there. Oh, I bet I know what happened. The bolt, I think, broke off. Then they tried to drill it out, but they drilled it crooked. And then they're like, well, let's just run a tap down there and probably put a smaller bolt in it. But then the tap broke and it was going in all crooked. I was trying to drill this out now, and there's already a hole there. How am I supposed to get that straight without having some sort of a drill press set up on here, like a mill or something? Oh my goodness, what a mess. Okay, all right. Well, I think I'm gonna pull the manifold. I don't see how in the world a guy would get a drill straight in there, but let me try something. I have an idea. I don't know if it'll work or not. I want to make sure that this is flat. So is this actually bumpy and raised here? If I can file this flat and then get my center punch right where I want it, and maybe get a drill to go down there. So this is totally flush now. Well, you can see now it's completely flush. I was hoping I'd be able to see where the outline of the bolt is. I don't know if you can see this or not, but there is an outline of the bolt right through here. I don't know if you can see that in the camera or not. An outline of a bolt right there. So I may be able to, if this is the inside of the bolt and that's the outside of the bolt, looking at the width of this thing, that might be the case. I may be able to get some sort of an extractor in here and twist this whole thing out. I mean, we did get it hot welding to it, so maybe that did some good. So let me see if I can find my extractor set and then get that pulled out. Hopefully, with any luck, it'll come out. We can run a thread chaser down it and then put the bolt back in. All right, what we got here is a set of left-handed drill bits. So the idea is you start to drill into the hole, it will catch, you go in the left direction, it'll catch the bolt and then back it all the way out. So let's see if that works. Make a right selection here. You want one just bigger than the hole you're trying to drill, and then give it a go. Here's the plan. You can see we got the one bolt there. You can see where the hole is kind of supposed to be on this side, but it's just a cheap gasket, so I don't want to base it off of that. He forgot to give me the thermostat housing, so that's it for tonight, I guess. So hopefully tomorrow I'll get the thermostat housing. So the plan is to bolt the thermostat housing on there and get it into position with the thermostat and everything, bolt it down with this side nice and tight, and then use the thermostat housing bolt hole as a guide where to drill. And that'll keep my bit from wandering around, especially when I'm trying to drill a hole next to another hole. And then from there, at least I'll have a center hole. I may be able to tap that, put a Healy coil in it, or I don't know, we'll see what I have some other tricks up my sleeve. In other words, I may be able to repair this without having to use a Healy coil or take the intake off or anything. We'll see if we are successful, but I need that thermostat housing so I know where to place the hole exactly. So unfortunately, that's it for tonight. We'll see you guys in the morning. Thermostat housing showed up. Doesn't appear to be the original one from this car based on the paint, but yeah, it'll work. Should work. Hose goes to the right place here. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, perfect. Make sure this actually fits the hose before I get it all on there. Yep. Okay, right diameter. Also brought me some grade 8 bolts, but these definitely aren't period correct. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean up the original ones. So that'll work. Nice clean threads. Can also run a thread chaser on it, make sure that it goes on nice and freely. And that bolt is ready to reinstall. This obviously was broken off into the motor, so we can use this one to replace wherever this one came out of, where it's hidden. So this is right on top of the motor. This would stick out like a sore thumb. So let's go ahead and use this one right here. All right, in no sense, you know, painting and detailing all this stuff. If the motor winds up being locked up and shot, you know, we're gonna have to pull it out, and then we can clean it up and detail it then on a rebuild, if God forbid we have to do that. Okay, so this does not index in here, but it does index in here. So we'll set this in on here where it needs to be, tighten this down so this doesn't move, hopefully, and then drill my hole through that hole. But this is soft aluminum, and you know, how do you get the drill bit completely centered? I got a tool for that. So I got these little guys right here. You put this down into the hole, and then you run your drill bit down through the center, and it helps center your drill bit. So just find the size that fits the hole. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my housing here. I'll put this guy in here. Got a couple 3/16 drill bits here of various sharpnesses or dullnesses, various levels of dullness. And then I will drill straight down into the manifold. So let's go ahead and get going. Got the thermostats in there seated down. Try to center this up best I can, and kind of, because you don't want it too far off one side of the other. So I'm just going to snug that down here. Get that nice and snug, so that way this doesn't walk around on me. And then I slip my centering piece in here. And then so we went all the way through the casting, which isn't a big deal. I know it's up and down straight, so now I can go with a larger drill bit and then open this up to the right size and then re-tap it. Now that I have a straight pilot hole, and then we'll just have to use a thread sealant on that bolt, and no big deal. All right, so the bolt hole needs to be at 3/8/16. My tap guide says to tap a 3/16 or 3/8/16 hole, you need a 5/16 drill bit. You drill the 5/16 down there, then you can run the tap down there and cut the threads. If you go too big or too small, the threads won't be big enough, or it'll bind up and break on you. So I'll go ahead and chuck this into the drill and carefully go down with it. Unfortunately, I don't have a centering tool big enough for this drill bit. As you can see down in the hole there, probably not. There is a hole dead center there, so that's perfect. So as long as I keep my drill bit perpendicular to the engine, drill this out, and hopefully it doesn't walk off on me here. And again, since I did break through into the water jacket, we'll have to make sure on this side, we'll have to make sure that we put thread sealant on here. All right, I don't know how much you can see inside the hole, but it's a nice straight hole going straight down. And it's the right distance from this one. All right, now for the fun part. Okay. Again, you got to make sure that you're perpendicular to the manifold. Hardest part is getting it started. So what we would do if this fails, because we're kind of cutting into, manifold, old bolt, it's not absolutely perfect. So if this should fail, I got to tighten this down and it strips out, then we will have to drill it to the next oversize and put a helicoil in it. And I have a helicoil kit if we need to do that. Install the helicoil. But I'm hoping I can just kind of repair these hole here. Oop. Off the camera. Okay, it's bottoming out. Pull that out, so the gunk that come out of there. Alrighty. Looks like nice threads in there, huh? Get the camera to focus. Anyway, let's I also like to run thread chaser down afterward just to make sure there's nothing goofy. That thread's right in there. There we go. Run a thread chaser down there, make sure everything's nice and cleared out. Blow it out one more time, then run a bolt in there, make sure it doesn't have any issues. Here's the bolt we're going to use. That's a bam. Sweet. All right, I think that's a win. As long as the threads hold and don't rip out. All right, since there's a hole down at the bottom there, I'm going to try to soak up some of the oil that was kind of caught or dripped down in there. Don't forget, don't accidentally leave that in there. That would be bad. Go ahead and get this mounted on here. Put the old thermostat back in there. This is just for reference. This is a 160. This is what the customer selected. All right, put some thread sealant on here. sure all your threads are coated. You don't want any water leaks coming out through this bolt here. This is what I'm using here, thread sealant, high temperature from Permatex, part number 59214. Yeah, that tightened up real nice. All right, that is one successful thread repair. All right, so now we got the thermostat housing on there. We can move on to the next step. Geez, we need to figure out how to get this motor turned over. I tried putting a bolt on the end of the crank, but it just keeps tightening it, and I do not want to have to do this again on the crank. So, yeah, I'm gonna pull the pulleys off, and then maybe put a breaker bar across where the bolts go. I don't know. We'll have to play it by ear, figure out what we're doing here. Found some steel wool. Alrighty, so we have almost no room. Got to loosen the power steering pump, so take the belt off, and then take that pulley off. Then maybe I'll have some room to actually get to the crank pulley. But let's go ahead and pull out all the spark plugs. And yeah, so that'll be fun. These wires look relatively new. Oops, lost my little tube. Okay, that was easy enough. I think I can get to all of these just fine. The other side, because this car has air conditioning, how in the heck are you supposed to... No, that's a dipstick. There's one. There's no room. What in the heck are you guys supposed to do here? I can get to it from underneath. Okay, two of them. Where in the world? Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Alright, well, I might have to go in from underneath. Okay, let's see what we can come up with here. I've got the 4 plugs out on this side. Wasn't too bad actually, it's pretty easy. They actually don't look bad at all. So we put anti-seize on the threads so they came out nice and easy. I'm probably just gonna put those back in. The other sides, same way. They all look really good. Can't get to the back one just yet. That's why I brought you in here to kind of show you where it's at. Okay, it is back, way back in there between the engine and the AC box. I can barely get my hand in there. So I have this tool here. I haven't really used it much. Spark plug wire puller. It's adjustable, so I can put it in different angles. So I can grab the boot and pull it off. And then I think I can snake my socket on there and either get my ratchet on there or put an open end wrench on this and break it free. Fortunately, these things had anti-seize on them, so it should break free pretty easily. Boy, big blocks are fun. I had to jack it up, and from underneath, I was able to get the spark plug socket on there and get that puppy out of there. These actually don't look half bad. Like I said, I'm probably just going to go ahead and put them back in after I kind of put a little juice down each cylinder, if I can get to any of them. Try to free up the rings and then turn it over. So I'm going to get some oil in there, and we'll let them soak while I work on getting the crank pulley off so I can get a proper wrench on there. Okay, got a little bit of Marvel Mystery Oil in 5 of the 8 cylinders. The other 3, they're almost impossible to even reach. So yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, I'll let those soak, those 5, and then I'm gonna go ahead to lunch, come back, put the gas tank in, start working on the fuel lines going from back to front, and then I'm gonna go ahead and try to see if this thing will turn by hand. And if not, then I'm gonna go ahead and pull the pulleys off and see if I can get like a different type of a spanner wrench or something on there to see if I can get that crank to turn. So hopefully with all the plugs out, we can get this thing to move. And we're back. We are at the back of the car right now. Got it jacked up on jack stands. Customer wanted the gas tank replaced, so we have a nice high quality Taiwanese gas tank to go in a very valuable numbers matching big block muscle car. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so here are the here's the 1 and 2 bolts to remove or relax the straps that hold the tank in. Basically, need to back these out. I'm gonna hit these with just a wire brush real quick, just kind of get some of the crud off, so I'm not fighting it all the way down. I'm just gonna hit this with the wire brush, but I can't really get the brush in there. So let's try the smaller one, which is pretty much worn out. One of the first problems I'm running into, the stud is too long to be able to get my socket to fit on there. So I got this little crow's foot on here, an extension, to try to break that free. Look at that, I can reach it now, cool. All right, there we go, cool. And get this loosened up, start on the other side. In order to get to the hose for the filler neck, gotta take the license plate off. In here, there's gonna be 2 hose clamps, nasty old hose. We have a new hose for it. Gotta save these clamps because we didn't buy new ones. But yeah, it's I don't think this thing's ever been out of here. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a tiny little screw here holding this little ground wire. So that's got to come off. There is a fuel line right here that will need to be disconnected. This long fuel line right here is actually connected to the sending unit. I can't reach the actual plug for the sending unit. It's on top of the tank, way up in there somewhere. So once I get the tank a little bit lowered, I should be able to reach in there, simply unplug it, and then drop the tank once I disconnect this guy right here and the hose. So once you have the straps down and the that one ground wire off, the sending unit wire comes forward and comes up through the back of the trunk here, so you can actually drop it down and pull it away and simply get to it. So you don't have to fight the cable up inside underneath trying to fish around for it. So that's really awesome. Chevy did actually something right for a change. Okay. All right, that's in good shape. Put that out of the way there. Ooh, this thing's stinky. I'm gonna get this thing outside. Since we have a new sending unit and tank, I don't have to worry about taking all this apart. However, there are these little guys. So I'm gonna try to save some of this and just transfer it to the new tank. These little isolation, like little rubber pads. Here's the original filler neck tube hose. You can see it's all cracked and dried out. Let's put these in the car, clamp the top one, leave the bottom one loose. The tank will come up to it, and then I'll shove it into the hose, into position, and then clamp it in. Make sure you put this in before you put the tank in, otherwise you're either dropping the tank again. You can, however, take this piece out right here and pull it out and then put it together that way, but I'd rather not disturb that. All right, the new tank, new sending unit. Kind of shove these in here. Gently. And this goes in here somehow. Looks like it's a little crooked, needs to be tweaked out a little bit. Okay. All right, the sending unit came with a O-ring and lock ring. The fuel tank also came with an O-ring and lock ring, so we have 2 sets. get the one that came with the tank. That's how this works. Put the O-ring in here. Feed the whole contraption gently into the tank. And it'll sit on there like so. And then the ring gets fed over the line here. Make sure you include your wire here so it doesn't get caught. Oh, maybe this doesn't go in there. Okay. Maybe that's on the outside. Okay. Never mind about the wire. And then this will go under here, this will go under here, and this will go under here. So this is the tricky part where you got to put some pressure on here. And this is sitting on a cardboard box. So let me move it off the cardboard box because I'm trying to press and all it's doing is moving the box. All right, the tricky part is getting this installed here. It's going to be easier without gloves, I think, because I should get in here. Just try to get all three of them started. And then there we go. Now I just need a little hammer and a punch. All right, this punch might be a little small, and if you can, use a brass punch. If you have fuel in the tank, if you're just changing out the sending unit, because if you make any sparks, that's no bueno. All right, now there's a little bump here, and here, and here, that we need to overcome to lock into this bump right here. It needs to lock into this spot right here. And that'll help push this down, squeezing the O-ring more. So I may have to get a bigger punch so I don't miss the darn thing here. See, it looks like it's wanting to pop off of there, like the ring is just a little too small. Okay, that is under here. This one needs to come under there a little bit, and this one's under there. I'll fold it over a little bit, but that doesn't matter. All right, I think it's perfect. We got this bump is in its home right here. This one's right underneath there. And this one's right underneath here. So that ring is locked in. That ain't going anywhere. So we're almost ready to reinstall this gas tank. We had some insulation strips on this tank. Oh my god, this tank is like, well, looks like it's all buckled. Good quality stuff, man, I tell you what. Hope that doesn't give me a fit when I'm trying to install this thing. Yeah, look at that, it's all dented up here. We have a couple of these strips that just kind of go on there, something like that. Maybe it was like this. Oh yeah, something like that. And then the other one went on the other side, kind of like that. And then there was one in the middle, right around here somewhere, just to keep it from vibrating. I'm just going to leave them sitting just like that. They'll get squished up between the floor. Ain't going to go anywhere. So I'll make sure that this isn't going to get caught on anything, so we'll wrap it around there a couple times. Should be fine. And mount it on the jack, we'll be ready to go. This will get slid under here. Found the garage door. Okay. Alright, so where I said this cable, don't forget to plug that in. It should just hook right on there. And then I feed this up and in. The cable will just relax across the top here. And then once I get it up there into place, I'll have to make sure I feed this into the hose right there. You know what? Before I get too far with this thing, I want to make sure that hose is completely removed from the other side. I need a 3/8 hose. Just got the hose cut. I don't want to put a new hose on there yet because I'm going to disconnect it up in the front and then blow the line out before I hook it up to the new tank. And I haven't disconnected the hose up front yet, so Get this mounted in there, then we'll take the hose off of the fuel pump inlet, spray some carb cleaner, brake cleaner or something through there, blow it out this side, and then hook everything up with some new hoses, put some fresh fuel in the tank, and then we'll be ready to fire. Well, let me see if I can get these straps in here. Okay, get the first one started. I haven't tightened this screw just yet. There's still a bit of a gap between the tank and the bottom of the hose. So I think this tank will come up more as I tighten the straps. And just as I suspected, the tank was brought up all the way to the base of the rubber hose here. So all I gotta do now is just tighten this up, connect my ground underneath, and then put in a new hose, and I'm done with the fuel tank install. All right, back in the car now. I am actually replacing fuel hoses. This here is the hose off of the fuel pump to the main line that goes back to the tank. There's my replacement one. Just cut it the same length. Got some new hose clamps. And while I was at the store getting some hoses, went to the Hobo Freight and got me a nice little light. So that's nice. So the line comes from the inlet of the fuel pump here. Just makes a simple loop to this line right here, attached to the frame that goes back to the tank. All right, so this is the line going to the sending unit right here, the new one. This is a new hose hooking up to the factory fuel 3/8 fuel line that goes up to the front of the car. I'm going to flush this out, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray the heck out of this and hopefully not explode it all over my new camera and light. Okay. Yep, that's just running out again. So I need to figure out how to do this upside down here. If I can. And then blow it up the front. I heard it do something up there. I heard it kind of pop. All right, keep an eye on this line right here. I'm going to spray it and then try to blow some air through it. Next section of line I want to clean out is the carburetor feed line. It comes from the carburetor down to the fuel pump. I'm going to disconnect it here. There it goes. All right, and then this should come off here. There should be a filter in here, like it says filter. And there she is. And there's a bunch of chunkies in it. Give it a little juice here. That's where you have to be really careful that you don't let it splash back into your face if it should happen to shoot back at you. Actually, let me do something real quick here. Let me grab a rag and put it on the end of that hose so it doesn't just shoot all over the carburetor. Oh, there it goes. Take a look at the carburetor there. All right, we have cleared any blockages, cleaned out the lines, and ready to hook it back up. I don't know what shape this carburetor's in, but at least we know that the lines to the carburetor are clean, and we'll have clean fuel at least to the carb. All right, I got this tool that's designed for something completely different, kind of rigged up. Got one bolt
where the pulley goes, and then the other end of it just kind of wedges up against the nut there, and then it turned. So I'm kind of up against the alternator here, so I can't keep turning it, but motor moved. So that is an awesome sign.
So that is really cool that I got this crank to turn, even if it's just a little bit. I'm going to reposition that tool and see if I can get a bigger swing, make sure it's freed up, and then I can put the regular ratchet on the hub, on the bolt rather, on the crank bolt, and see if I can just kind of turn the motor over a few times. I'm kind of limited with the water pump on here as far as getting a nice big swing on this thing. And obviously with the cross member under there, I'm not going to be able to do that either. So I just put in 3 grade 8 bolts into the holes, and then just kind of use that as a place to get leverage. And I can turn it. So that is a win. Like running into all sorts of stuff in there. Anyway, you get the idea. Big relief that the motor turns. So now I can work on figuring out why the starter doesn't kick on when you turn the key. I got to trace the battery cables back to the starter and make sure everything's hooked up right. I don't know, maybe it was just stuck, and so when they tried it, it wasn't doing anything. Don't know. Have to do some more exploration. All right, I think I figured out the cable routing. This actually is going to the starter, so this is the positive. This one's the negative. It had this eyelet crimped on there. Cut that off. So I'm just kind of stripping the end of the cable here. This is just temporary because, man, yeah, these are not pretty. A little bit of corrosion in there. Now, I don't have any battery cables kicking around. Let me see if I can get some light on the situation here. But I did have a Fairlane sitting outside with these goofball gold-plated battery terminals. So I'm actually going to connect this, because then I can also connect this. I can also connect this all into this one terminal, because this is for the ground. So I'm going to cut these 2 off, strip those back. There's actually a fitting on the back here that I can run them into. So it's actually kind of convenient, honestly, but they're just kind of goofy looking. So I'll do that, put that on there. That'll be good for all my grounds. This is positive. There's actually a positive junction block over here. Oh, you know what? Glad I double checked that. This is actually positive. This is not a ground, this one's positive. So this one gets connected to that one. These 2 connect to this one. Okay. So that's how that goes. So I'm going to cut this off, splice it in with this, cut this off, put those on there. Okay, I got a plan. Alright, I don't know if you can see that or not, but the clamp is completely closed up, and it does still fit a little bit loose on the post. I mean, it's not bad, but you know, there's not really much room to clamp that anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this apart, trying not to lose everything here, and then I can actually use this tool right here and spread that apart. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a file and file down in between. That way I can actually squeeze them back together and have them tighten up a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to file in between here, so that way I can actually get more of a crimp on there. Not taking off a whole lot of material. I just want it to be able to close up just a little bit and clamp down nice and tight without essentially bottoming out. All right, put this back together a little bit here. These actually, there's actually 2 of these. One for the positive, one for the negative. This actually has N on there, and the other one actually has a P. So, because I don't know, most folks don't necessarily realize that the posts on batteries are 2 different sizes. One's a little bit larger than the other, so you don't mix them up. But you know, people put universal ends on there all the time, and then just crank them down, and you know, most folks don't. A lot of folks don't realize that there's a difference between the sizes. These are not factory terminals, so I have no remorse cutting these off. This is the positive one here. Yeah, this wire has seen better days for sure. Okay. There we go. There's that one. This will go onto here. Make sure I get my routing correctly before I do that. Put the battery in and then do that. I think these are intended when you have like stereo systems and a bunch of stuff like that. Ground cable's on. Not a whole lot of play because it's kind of captured by this wire. This wire needs to be longer. And it's actually fraying pretty bad right there, but it's good for now. If he gets a set of OEM style cables, you know, reproduction factory style cables for the 68 Camaro SS 396 with air conditioning, then it'll probably have all of this correct, ready to go. This one here goes to a junction block on the firewall. It looks like a ground wire, well, because it's actually brown. But it goes to a junction block here that's isolated from the firewall, or excuse me, from the core support. All right, let's get a battery and see what happens. Hopefully we don't have no smoke show. Alrighty. Battery in here. Oh man, there we go. So sometimes if the cable's really tight on there, it doesn't want to go. Open this back up, put this in there, and you can spread it open. Then, well, maybe a little more. Oh, you know what? This is a ground cable. We're gonna have problems because this is a ground cable. Okay, well, sorry sir, that's as good as it's gonna get until you get the proper battery cables on here. Remember I said earlier the ground cable is smaller. All right, so this is the positive cable, but it's actually a ground cable. So let me go ahead and just put that on there. Check for sparks. All right, I'm going to turn the key, see what happens. I did disconnect the coil wire because all these wires are laying in, you know, old gas and stuff. I don't want to actually accidentally spark it off. I got interior lights. That's cool. A square key or round key? Well, none of the keys work in the ignition. So you really have to fiddle with these keys a lot, the other keys, to get it to turn. This is just really worn out, so the key is actually going in too far. So if you pull it out a little bit, it works. But it's really hard to get it into the accessory, and I would hate for it to get stuck into the start position because you turn it from off to on or run, and then you turn it a little bit more to go start. Right? I'd hate for it to bind up on the start position. I don't know if it could or not, but I'd rather not take the chance and just have it keep trying to start the motor. I had to fiddle with it quite a bit to get it into the accessory position, so that way I can get the pin in there to take the lock cylinder out. So we're gonna get a new lock cylinder tomorrow. It's already like 10 o'clock at night, so everything's closed. Yeah, I mean, I guess they tried, you know, turning the key on to see if the engine would turn over or anything, and they got nothing. With the battery hooked up, the lights come on, the dash lights come on, the brake lights work, all that good stuff. But I found out why they weren't getting any power to the starting system, because the entire plug that goes onto the back of there wasn't even connected. So it was just hanging out down there. So I'm going to reinstall this and plug it in, and then I just use a screwdriver just to see if we can get any action out of the starter motor. What's funny is with the little bezel here, it was loose, and I unscrewed it and the thing almost fell down. You know, the ignition switch almost fell backward into the dash. So I reached my hand up behind it, and I'm like, wait a minute, there's no wires here. So that's how I discovered that. So let me get that back installed, see if I can get that, you know, working blind, because this is an AC car, so there's lots of duct work and cables and all sorts of stuff back there. So I'm going to see if I can fish my hand back up in there to plug that back in, and then put the bezel back on there, and we'll be in business once we get the ignition cylinder. But I should be able to try it with a screwdriver tonight just to see if the starter will even turn the motor over. Our ignition switch is reinstalled with the bezel, and then it's actually plugged in. Check this thing out. Months stereo.
not affiliated with Muntz TV. This is a 4-track and 8-track player. Isn't that cool?
All right, moment of truth. Let's see if we can get some action out of the starter.
Now we have an ignition switch hooked up.
All right, so that is a win. As soon as I turned the key, or in this case, the screwdriver, the fan was blowing full blast, so I turned the fan off. I heard some weird noises coming from the back. Then I turned the stereo off. So stereo's, getting power to the speakers. It was just kind of humming. Turned it on again. Didn't hear anything. That was a good sign. And then she cranks. So just need an ignition switch to make life a little easier in the cockpit. Tomorrow I will turn the engine over a few more times, and then just make sure all that Marvel Mystery Oil is kind of spat out of there if there's any left. Then we get to put all of the spark plugs back in, and then the pulleys, and then put some fuel in there and see if she fires. It is 12:30 at night. I am exhausted. Finally got everything all buttoned up under the hood. AC compressor bracketry is all put back together. I'm not the one who took it apart, so it was a bit of a jigsaw puzzle. Power steering pump and the alternator belt's nice and tight now. So those are all set, ready to go. Change the valve cover gasket on that side. This side left well enough alone. The cork gasket sealing, I'm not gonna, really bother it unless we need to take it off. Then we can change it. I did put a new Wix filter, fuel filter in the front of the carburetor here. I don't know what shape the carburetor's in, but it moves super freely and it doesn't look like there's going to be any issues. Hopefully it works okay. I also changed out this vacuum line. The other one was all hard and just kind of fell off as soon as I touched it. And it took hours to put those plugs in the back, along with the wires on the side. Absolutely nightmare with the air conditioning units. If this didn't have AC, probably no trouble at all. If you're gonna have air conditioning in your first gen Camaro, make sure it's on a small block where you actually have room. This is a nightmare to work on with the AC on that side for plugs. And I can't even imagine having headers on this thing. Yeah, we're almost there. Just need to prime the carburetor and then see if she'll fire up. But that's for tomorrow. It's like I said, it's well after midnight. And I'm ready for bed. We'll see you in the morning.
All right, let's go ahead and prime the carburetor a little bit here. Fill the bowls up here with some gas. I'm not sure how much this will hold, but
I think we're ready to go. I primed the carburetor, got the battery hooked up. I have the coil wire disconnected right now. I'm going to crank it a little bit, a few turns maybe to get some oil circulating, and then I did check the oil, it is full, and then I'll hook up the coil wire and we'll see if it kicks off. All right, good news. There is an oil pressure gauge in the car, and it was climbing all the way up to 40, just cranking. So that's a win. I got the wheels up in the air, just in case there's something goofy going on. I'm not going to drive it through the back wall here or back it into our pool, but I'll put it in gear, get the wheels turning, and then I'll hit the brake and see if the brakes are even working at all. It does have a vacuum booster and so forth, but don't know what shape any of that stuff's in, so we're going to play it safe for now. Make sure it goes into gear. And I do want to put the air cleaner back on here, just in case there's any backfire out of the car, but I don't light all this insulation on fire here. Air cleaner stud, the threads are all boogered up on it. Go figure. Alright, chase the threads on the air cleaner stud. Air cleaner wing nut just spins right on, all the way down. Alright, looks like we have no spark. So I gotta figure out why do we have no spark.
pull that cap off and take a gander, shall we? Cap and rotor look practically new. And the spark plug wires looked new. The spark plugs were super clean. They weren't brand new. They look like they've been run, but not much. So I think somebody did a tune-up on this thing years ago, and then it sat for a long time. Maybe a dead coil. I gotta check voltages in a few places and make sure we have power to things. We might find that there's some sort of a anti-theft switch somewhere hidden. Who knows? So I will start investigating and I will let you know what I find out. So we got power at the coil. Not sure why it's not kicking off just yet. I'm gonna throw some of this down there. Maybe it's just not getting any fuel, and we'll see what happens. That was successful. It looks like it lit off for a split second. So it tells me the ignition system is actually there. I'm gonna get some more fuel. Maybe that takes a lot more than I thought to prime those bowls. Maybe shove a little down its throat, kind of force feed it a little bit, and we'll see what we can come up with. All right, let's try it again. All right, so far so good. Let me do a leak check. So good. Checking the tank here. All right, remember how I left the line in the back out so I can blow the lines out? Well, I never actually connected the tank, so let me go do that real quick. Let me try this. Let's try this again. Certainly not the reason why it won't stay running just off of the fuel in the bowls, but it certainly will prevent it from pulling any gas. Quite a bit of fuel in there now, so hopefully that'll work. Better get it running for a little bit here. Alright, with any luck, we'll have this thing idling on its own for the first time in 26 years. Well, we're not quite there, and we have gas all over the place. So let's see if we can find out where that's coming from. My guess is that this thing needs a carb rebuild. So all the gas is on top. It's not coming out of the fitting. So my guess is that the floats are probably stuck, and it's just flooding the heck out of this thing. So obviously it flooded the whole intake manifold as well. It's got plenty of pump shot. I honestly don't know anything about quadrajets, but I'm not ashamed of that. I'm almost proud of it. I wonder how hard it would be to connect an Edelbrock on here, because I have an Edelbrock sitting. I don't know. There's another one of these inside the trunk. Maybe I'll take it apart, kind of learn how these stupid things are supposed to work. It's flooded all the way up on the top. So I think the fuel pump started working, and it's just pushing fuel out the vent hole, because I think the floats are sunk or stuck. So let me crack the top of this open, see if I can see anything obvious, and then go from there. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and take this carburetor apart. At least take the top of it off, and then see what I can see. maybe there's some crud in there, keeping the needle and seat from opening and closing properly. And see if the floats are stuck. Maybe get some carb cleaner, blow it out a little bit, and then be back in business. You know those little magnetic trays? You always see them at like the Harbor Freight and whatnot. I have one, and I never use it. And I was thinking to myself, wow, this would be a perfect opportunity to break it out and use it. And it's usually sitting right there attached to my workbench, and it's not there. As soon as I want to use it, it's missing. So it looks like the two front mounting bolts for the carburetor have to come out as well. Would you believe there's screws down inside the Venturi? Let's see if this will come off now. Oh, look at that. All right. This actually doesn't feel bad. The rubber on the accelerator pump is nice and soft.
All right. I'm a mess, but carb's clean now.
As good as it's gonna get on the car. This had all sorts of nasty sediment and gunk in there. I was blowing out all the orifices, and big old chunks of red goopy stuff was coming out of it. So I think that'll help. Put the jets back in it, reassemble it, make sure the float's operational, and then then we'll give it another whirl. And voila, got the carburetor all rebuilt. I just did it on the car, took the lid off. There's all sorts of gunk and everything in there. Got it all cleaned out, put it back together. Fortunately, the spare carburetor that was in the trunk had a good gasket, so I was able to reuse that one because the old one torn. Never played with a quadrijet before. Hope it works. Let's try it out. I gotta plug up the battery still, huh? Okay. Don't see any leaks on this side yet either, so that's a good sign. Let's check the leaks. This sounds like it's getting gas now. Don't see any leaks on this side. Don't see any leaks on that side. First time idling in 26 years. At least that's the last time it was registered.
Well, I never rebuilt a quadrijet, let alone still on the engine, but I must have did something right because it starts great, it idles just fine, it seems to rev okay. So, you know, when the car is just bone stock, it's a little easier than when you have all sorts of variables from aftermarket stuff. So good news. So yeah, I'll call a customer, let them know, hey, it's alive. So I did put it in drive, and then I put it in reverse. It moves the wheels both ways. The brakes stop the wheel, but the brake pedal is all the way to the floor. I see a disc brake upgrade in the future. One of the only modifications or modern upgrades that I don't mind seeing on a quote-unquote virgin vehicle, you know, some survivor like this, is a disc brake upgrade, especially on 65 and older vehicles that has a single reservoir master cylinder. Upgrading that to a dual reservoir with discs in the front is, especially if you're going to be driving it at all, is a worthwhile upgrade. I mean, drum brakes work fine; they stop just fine. But you know, if you're in today's modern traffic, those disc brakes will come in handy. All right, guys, well, that's about it on this 1968 Chevy Camaro 396 SS, one owner car. It runs and drives. It doesn't stop yet, so I'm in the process of bleeding the brakes. I might be changing this master cylinder out, and then once that's done, we'll give it back to the customer. But that's a wrap on this video. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next one. It's alive! The brakes are not much present.